Take all your dollars, bury them in your garden. Watch the food come up, just trying to catch the sky. Gather up your harvest, carry it off to market. We'll all rejoice in the fruits of life. Ain't that nice?
Hey homies, it's Gabby, and welcome back to the Happy Home Workshop web series. In this video, we're going to be learning about how to feel more at home in our relationships. And we have the privilege of being joined by Carmen De Jesus. Carmen is a second-generation Filipina-American writer, facilitator, consent educator, coach, and cultural strategist. Her diverse body of work creates a powerful through line of liberation, healing, and personal and collective transformation through embodied consent practices and generative narratives. She teaches as faculty for the School of Consent. She also teaches her own programs embodying equanimity and decolonizing desire, in addition to coaching and consulting individuals, partnerships, and organizations of all types. Lastly, she's a stellar human and dear friend of Happy, Carmen.
Hi, I'm Carmen. Welcome to my home. So I'm a consent educator, and the way I came upon this path was a couple different things. So first off, when I was around 18, 19 years old, well, I started when I was 16, but I was in a Broadway musical. And I loved that work, and I was very young, and I was living far, far away from home. And it was beautiful work, and then I was assaulted by a stagehand. I ended up making the choice to curtail my musical theater career because of that really traumatic experience. And that was really my first, I think, taste of, wow, this is what it's like to not have my limits respected, and compounded by a bunch of people not believing me and things like that. So I say that because it feels really like a real inciting incident for me in my life in this consent education work. So if we're talking about consent, for most people, consent is about permission. And permission just means that somebody wants something and is trying to get it, permission to do it from somebody else. And let's just call this in the gatekeeper model. In this heteronormative model, there is a woman, usually a female body person or a woman, who has the sex. And they have a gate that, they hide the sex behind, and they protect it. And so that makes it the man's job to try to get the sex, to try to get her to lift the gate through seduction, persuasion, flirting, convincing, all the way to forcing, right? And that model is so flawed in so many ways. And it also makes it that the woman doesn't get to have any desire. And the man in this model doesn't even get to have any limits. Because if he's supposed to be imbued with all the want and she's holding all the limits, then it's actually not something that is collaborative. And there is no gate. There is no permission. It's about an ongoing and dynamic and very alive process. And that means everybody gets to have desire and everybody gets to have limits. This Wheel of Consent model I love has also a further nuance of what do I want to do when it's for me, and what am I willing to do when it's for you? So it doesn't always have to be about rah, enthusiastic consent, because sometimes, you may not have that, but does that mean it's not consensual? No, you can be in willingness, even if you're not in the full want with somebody. And willingness is also really useful in other non-sexual, non-intimate ways when you're with your best friend or with any friend or something like that, and somebody asks you, will you take me to the airport? So I can be, in my willingness, I could be like, I'd be willing to do that for you once, or I could be willing to drive you to the shuttle because that'll take me, 40 minutes back and forth rather than 5 whole hours. That idea is beautiful because we can preface what we want. For example, just by saying, if I was to ask that of you, I could say, would you be willing to? When I came to this model and heard about like this idea of willingness, how there's a spectrum of want when there's something that I want for me. And then there's a spectrum of willingness of what I'm willing to do for somebody else. Personally, I thought to myself, how much time have I spent myself in just the willingness and not enough in my want? Because I was not taught that it was okay to want. I was not taught it was safe to want. And whatever wants I did have felt like they came in from the outside world to influence what I should want. So being able to negotiate and discover really, first of all, that I was allowed to have desires and wants of my own that weren't influenced by colonization or capitalism or society or even my own trauma or religion, was a huge epiphany for me. The idea that it is valuable in and of itself to just get in touch with what we want, because desire is a life force for vitality, for motivation. We are so conditioned often to not want all the things that we want because that might make us seem selfish or entitled or spoiled. And so we really cut off a lot of those wants. And when people can't get in touch with wants, then I get to play a game called this or that. So even if somebody's like, I don't want things, it's like, okay, great. Well, if I asked you, would you like some French fries or would you like some potato chips? This or that, which one would you like? And somebody might actually have a question, an answer to that around, well, I like crunchy things. They're both potato. Okay, I'll choose the chips. Okay, you prefer the chips. And we just keep playing ice cream or a popsicle, this or that, until people begin to realize, I actually do have preferences after all. And maybe some of those preferences, when you think about them, might actually be desires. So we lead and scaffold people into that, knowing that it's hard sometimes just to even be given the opportunity, what do you want? And when you don't have an answer to that question, that what should have been a liberating question can turn into something that we judge ourselves for. I think the first thing that I'll say about limits is that I don't trust anybody who says they don't have any limits. Because that signals to me that they have perhaps not really paid a lot of attention to their own sense of choice around, hey, you know what, did I really want to do that? Or was I really willing to go along with that? And it might signal to me that, oh, maybe this is a person who overextends, who overgives, who actually is not even aware of where their own limit is. And that might come back to me in relationship later on when they accidentally cross one of their own limits, or I cross a limit that they didn't even know it was there. Because that's oftentimes how we learn about limits, is after they've already been crossed. And I would say that right now, with regards to limits, if you can think of a place in your life where you're holding resentment, then that could lead you to a question around, is there a limit that I haven't expressed? Is there, or have I crossed my own limit? And I only know that now because of how I'm feeling. And is there something that I wanted that I haven't asked for, that I've kind of been waiting for, and dropping giant breadcrumbs in hopes that somebody will pick them up. But I actually haven't spoken it out loud, and I'm expecting somebody to mind read for me. So that to me, those to me are some of the ways that you can explore, where are my limits? Because like I said, oftentimes we don't know where they are until we've come up against them, or they've already been crossed by ourselves or someone else. And this helps me recognize when I am approaching the end of my willingness and I'm beginning to move into tolerating things, enduring things, all the way to where I feel, oh, I might be being exploited right now. How do I not be complicit in my own exploitation? What is my real no? What is my real yes? What does that feel like in the body? How do I somatically become aware of that? How do I actually use that awareness to discern my authentic yes and no, my authentic want or willingness, and that level of honesty in communication, not just with another person, but primarily first the self-consent of being honest with oneself about what we want, about what we don't want. So we're trying to figure out ways to bust shame, bust guilt, bust resentment, bust overgiving, and also create a space where we can be more vulnerable. And that's what feels like home, is a place to be 100% authentic and unmasked in my desire, in my mess, in my, I don't know yet, can we just try? Do you really mean when you say what you want, is that what you really want? We don't have to do that all the time, because we can trust ourselves more, and when we trust ourselves more, and we know our partner is with us in this liberatory structure, this framework, this understanding, this shared language, then we know we can trust them. And ideally, I think that helps. That's what's going to help us to build relationship by relationship, the kind of world where, we can ask for what we need. We can give with generosity because we have limits, and build in those levels of reciprocity and enjoyment and pleasure and support in a way that's really honest and true. So I wanted to invite folks into a practice that we call the wanting game. And in the wanting game, we just go around in a little bit of a circle, and each of us, when it's our turn, takes a moment to tune in to ourselves, and think about something that we want to express in the form of a want. So what we do is we tune in, I'll think about something, and I'll say, I want, and then I'll offer something. And then the other people who are in the circle with me can affirm my want by just saying, like, I want that for you too. It's a game that if you imagine playing this in a big circle of people, one person's want unlocks another person's want, unlocks another person's want, and all of a sudden the space is just vibrating with desire, and it shifts the vibe in such an awesome way to be in our wants, to bear witness to each other's desires in this way together. So I just wanted to offer that. That's one of my favorite games.
Thanks for joining us for this Happy Home Workshop. I hope it's got you feeling like you can tune into your desires and limits. If you want, or if you're willing to learn more about this critical work, check out the link in the video below. And as always, thank you for your valuable attention, and I hope you have a happy day.
We'll all rejoice in the fruits of life. Ain't that nice? Hard work, long days, dirt hands make for clean ways. You won't waste another day in your garden